we already pushed that, but we're going to do it again. Here we go. Hi, folks. Is it working? Can you hear me? Yes, Greg says. Do you hear me? Want to make sure of that. Facebook friends. Yes, 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 yes. Sound. Yes, we can hear. Yeah. Yippee. You are so funny, friends. You are so funny. All right, here we go. Here we go. We're a little bit late, but it's okay. We can do this. We can do this. No, you mean in Facebook?
Over there.
You think it's further down? Can you hear me on Facebook? That's what I want to know too. Okay. Yes, I think this is it. Oh no, this is the old one. Okay, we're going to see how it goes. Let's see. There's still no sound on Facebook. Yes, let's go back to this. We'll redo it. Yep, refresh. That's what I'm doing here. Refresh.
You gotta go back. You gotta get out of that screen.
Yep. Hold on, friends. Hold on.
Okay. Now click on it.
Yep.
And now scroll down.
How's this? That should be it.
Yep.
There it is. We are on Facebook. Good. You can hear me on Facebook. You can hear me in Mighty's. Holy cow. 14 minutes to get this going. Let's get going. We got a lot to do. We're talking about alternatives to antibiotics. And I'm going to talk to you about one of my favorite medicines. And I've talked about this before, but I want to flesh it out even further. For those of you who've been following me for a long time, you already know about this remedy. For those who are brand new, this is one of our best medicines for when there is the chance of sepsis, when there's a chance of septic fever. I'm not even going to go into announcing who I am and what we're doing here. We're just going right into it because you know who I am. You know what we're doing. We're going to meet here every Monday night. I want to teach you about this medicine, and I want to get this done quickly because I have a class coming up. The medicine that is it's a certain kind of infection. It's a certain kind of a situation in which their infection can be potentially quite dangerous. So it could be for a urinary tract infection that's really gotten out of hand. It could be for a skin infection, a bone infection, blood poisoning. Yes, it is pyrogenium. Yes, pyrogenium. It is so powerful when it is well chosen. It is probably one of our most powerful medicines that we have. So I'm going back to Facebook again. Let's see if we can do this again. Change this. All right. And so it is made from, and this is going to make a lot of sense for you. This medicine, pyrogenium, is made from beef that is putrid. So it's putrescent meat. It is only for certain kinds of infections. It's for when there's a threat of something getting worse or it already is bad. Blood poisoning. Elderly have UTIs that go septic so easily, says Rebecca. You bet. It's amazing for the elderly. Now, because they're more susceptible to infections, to bacterial infections. This is not for viruses. This is for bacterial infections. But I'm going to give you the list of what it can be used for. It can be used for influenza. I don't normally use it for influenza. It is not one of my first choices. But if influenza is getting to the point where the person has a high fever, there's lots of achiness, and there's even kind of a feeling of, I guess, restlessness is a good way to, agitation. Then we might consider it for influenza. It's not my first choice, but what it is great for is for puerperal fever. So that's fever after a mother has been given a birth and she goes into fever. That is pyrogenium, an absolute. My dad had major jaw surgery for cancer. He keeps getting MRSA, pyrogenium, if I can convince him to try it. It is, it's not that it's not for MRSA, it's for a specific reaction. Whether it's this this bacterial infection or that kind of bacterial infection, it has to do with how it's presenting. So it's not, that's why I hesitate to even talk about influenza. It's got to be something where there's a disparity between for example, the pulse rate and the temperature. And I'm reading this specifically from this particular statement from the desktop guide by Roger Morrison. The pulse, for example, is 140, though there's only a moderate fever, or vice versa. So it has to do with extreme situations. Puerperal fever, I said that. Typhoid fever. Fevers that could potentially go septic. Women used to die of puerperal fever. I shouldn't say used to. They still die of puerperal fever. Often there can be an offensive discharge after the mother is given birth. It can be not within moments, but more often like days later, 2 or 3 days later. Why? Because there is a retained placenta. And when there's retained placenta, it might just be even a small portion. It can become septic, and that would cause an odor, leukorrhea, discharge, and fever. That is a call for pyrogenium. What potency? I use 30, I use 200. I've never gone to 1M. I've never needed to do that. When I was first going into septic, I felt like the flu was coming on fast. That's what it feels like. It's fast, super fast, and oh so achy, and I couldn't stop rocking and moving. Felt like the worst flu, rocking and moving. So it's that feeling of restlessness. There's also kind of an awareness of the heart, meaning during this fever or during this infection, the person is experiencing their heart. It is a sensation that the heart is working really hard. This can be for after an injury, after surgery, shortly after surgery, a person can go into sepsis. When there's an infected organ, such as the appendix, if that were to burst, they could quickly go to sepsis. This is the medicine. Obviously, we get surgery. The surgery is usually required, but it is absolutely for appendix, and you're working with hopefully the surgeon to get that surgery taken care of. But meanwhile, if possible, you're going to be using pyrogenium before the person is wheeled in. After, if you had a surgeon who was aware of this, then during would be wonderful as well. There is a delirium with this fever sometimes too, because it's so extreme, it's so fast, it's so intense that it feels as though the person has lost control. It can even be when the person has gone into a coma from sepsis. Then in that case, we're going to be using this pretty darn frequently. Now, we're assuming that this is when there is no medical care, or the medical care is paltry. Because you know what they're going to be doing in a hospital, the person's going to be on an IV of antibiotics. What if they're on an IV of antibiotics? This will not interfere with antibiotics. You want a good doctor on your team, obviously. But if this were out in the woods somewhere and you couldn't get to a hospital, you need to own this medicine. Pyrogenium 30 or 200. It's in most kits. Either one would work. the closer it is to, or the more intense the situation, the closer each administration of the remedy becomes. So we tighten up as the condition is extreme, and we open up and taper off as it becomes less and less bothersome, or problematic, I should say. All right. My life was saved after childbirth with pyrogenium. Cindy, yes. Oh, that's wonderful to hear. It's wonderful. It's a remedy made from rotten meat. Absolutely. Rotten beef. That's how you'll remember it. It's there can be an odor, a strong odor. There can be an odor of rotted flesh, of the leucorrhea, is as strongly tainted with a strong odor. Yes, meet the frequency with the severity. So let's say there's an infection. Someone talked about dental. Let's say there's a dental infection. The tooth is extracted, and at that very moment, there's a sense that the infection is going through the bloodstream. Pyrogenium, right then and there. Don't wait. Right then and there. You administer it right there when the person's in the chair. This is important stuff to know. What about an open wound on the leg that will not heal? We're not talking about that unless it is a fever, unless it is an infection. If the open wound is not infected, it's not pyrogenium per se. Now, let me also say this, that pyrogenium can be used prophylactically from time to time. But I always hesitate to give this information out overtly to people who may not understand how to use homeopathy. So, could it be used as a prophylactic? It potentially could. Could it be used if there's the potential of an infection? Yes. But if the person has got a wound and it's not been healing, and so far there's no evidence of infection, I would rather that the person work with a seasoned homeopath. Would this be helpful for Lyme? And no, it's not. This is not about Lyme. This is not about Lyme. Lyme does not generally, that I'm aware of, go septic. What about osteomyelitis? Oh, yes. If it's going septic, if it looks like there's a fever involved, then I would consider using it. This is a medicine that's not used for we don't use this chronically. We use this because we are in an acute, serious situation. And folks, listen, I teach this in much greater detail, not just this remedy, but other remedies for acute, severe situations in my survivalist guide. And I would seriously consider, if you have an interest in this, to getting that survivalist guide. You can contact my office and you can get it there. Okay, let's see. I thought pyrogenium was for sepia with a fever. Well, I don't know exactly what that means. So can it be used instead of AB when you go to the dentist and you've antibiotic if you've had a knee replacement? No, I would use it when it's needed, not potentially would not go with prophylactic. Would not use it that way. Okay, so the video went away and now we're back again. I think it's for sepsis. So this is what I'm going to suggest. Yes, cellulitis. Yes, cellulitis. Absolutely. What I'm going to suggest is that you open up your Materia Medica and read up on Pyrogenium, so that you don't end up using it superfluously. I don't like to see homeopathic medicines used unless they are needed, unless they are required. Okay? I know the video is going in and out. I'm glad you love The Survivalist. Thank you, Kay, for saying. Could it be used for an infected dog bite? Yeah, if it's infected, if it's going, yes. If it's yes, it could be. Anja says she loves pyrogenium. I have 6 different potencies. Yes, but to be honest, I think, yeah, and it's good to have them all, but I like 30s and 200s. How does it prove? If you don't know what approving is, you need to know more. You need to just study homeopathy a little more in depth so that you understand what approving is. I'm not going to go into it now. You mentioned UTI. Is that only when it's presenting with a fever, or if the UTI is intense or gone on for a long time? It's when you've used all the correct homeopathic medicines for UTI and it's not acting, and what you're seeing now is it's going into a deeper infection. And how do you decide between a 30 and a 200? I would use either one. I don't know that you'd have to make quite a decision. If you use the 30 and it's not acting, then you go to the 200. That's the way I would look at it, or vice versa. Let's see. In April, I had an emergency 9-hour dental surgery. Wow. I was full of infection, including a UTI that I still have after 6 months. I'm working with 2 homeopaths. Good. Stay with your homeopaths. Yes. Good. Good. I think you can still hear me, right? I'm hoping that you can hear me and see me. It's really helpful to be able to see me too. So, if for cellulitis, would that be a good remedy when someone has the initial Lyme bullseye, or would you suggest a different? I would not use it with the bullseye. That is not sepsis. That is simply a bullseye. Do not jump to, oh my gosh, this is an infection. I must use it. No. This is for very severe, potentially even life-threatening, on the way to the hospital, working with the doctor. That's when we use this, not for bullseye Lyme infection. That's a whole different world. And I've written about Lyme on my blog, so you can take a look at that. Let's see what else we've got. I know you can hear me now, which is great. I'm glad to see that. You can see me. All fine on Facebook. Good. This is my concern when I teach about homeopathy. I don't want you to use homeopathy willy-nilly. This is medicine, my friends. It's very important that you use it with a great measure of caution. Red line of infection? Oh, yes, red line. Now we're talking. Red line up the arm after an injury to the thumb or to the fingers? You bet. So it's important that you know what you're doing. I'm giving you the skeletal information. I expect that you are going to open up your Materia Medica and read up on it. Not once, not twice. You're going to keep reading up on it until you know that you actually understand this medicine. The mistakes that are made in homeopathy are mistakes as a result of not knowing when to use the medicines, making assumptions, and thinking these are, oh, what the heck, it's perfectly safe. Homeopathy is not perfectly safe. I'm sorry. It's relatively safe, but it's not perfectly safe. I'm reading these questions here. Yes, thank you, Marie says. Yes. You see, if you read what others are saying, tonight about when they've used pyrogenium, you're going to get a very good picture of when it's used and when it should not be used. You see, watch what these people are saying. I use pyrogenium for thus and so. It helped me when I had this or that. That's how you learn. That's one of the ways you learn. But in addition to that, you also need to be reading. Do not go to my blogs or my Facebook or even Mighty's and just say, well, there's the medicine for that. Done. No, I want you to do your homework. I want you to read the Materia Medica. If you don't own one, go online, look Dr. James Tyler Kent or Dr. Boraki or Roger Morrison or something that will give you more information. I'm giving this to you for you to be responsible. This is not, I'm not taking responsibility for your health. You are taking responsibility for your health. And so, my friends, I have to dash off. I'm sorry this was so short, but I think I got my point across. I think you know enough about this medicine to at least spark your interest and get you reading up on it. Yes, very good. Thank you, my friends. This has been great. Please excuse my technological ineptitude, and I will see you next Monday at 8 Eastern Time. Bye now.